Finland. Most people couldn't find it on a map without hesitating. It sits quietly at the top of Europe, sandwiched between Sweden and Russia, half covered in forest, half lost in silence. And yet, something about this place draws people in. Not the noise, not the glamour, not a coastline lined with palm trees. Something else entirely. A stillness, a calm that you can almost feel through a screen. If you've ever looked up photos of Finland and thought, why does everyone here look so peaceful, so effortlessly put together, so quietly beautiful? You're not imagining it. There's something real behind that image. And today, we're going to find out exactly what it is. The nature, the culture, the customs, the sound completely made up, and the dark side that most travel videos won't touch. Because Finland is not the fairy tale it appears to be from the outside. It's stranger, more honest, and in some ways more admirable than that. So here are the facts about real life in Finland, the beautiful, the bizarre, and the side that never makes the brochure. Start with the land itself, because nothing about Finland makes sense until you understand the place it's built on. Finland has around 5.5 million people. That's smaller than many single cities. And yet it stretches 1,160 kilometers from south to north. If you turned it upside down and placed the top of Finland at London, the bottom would reach the Sahara Desert. For a country that small in population, it occupies an almost absurd amount of space. And most of that space is forest. About 74% of Finland is covered in trees, making it the most forested country in all of Europe by percentage. You can drive for an hour in some directions and not see a single building. Just birch trees, pine trees, and the occasional reindeer staring at you like you've made a wrong turn somewhere. Then there's the water. Finland has more lakes per square kilometer than almost any country on Earth. The official count sits at around 188,000 lakes. But that number depends entirely on how you define a lake. Some estimates push it far higher. What's certain is that nearly every Finnish family has some story involving a lake. A cabin beside one, a swim in one, a childhood summer spent entirely near one. Water isn't scenery in Finland. It's part of the soul of the place. And like Sweden, Finland has a concept called every man's right. The freedom to walk, camp, pick berries, and fish in nature, regardless of who owns the land. You can set up a tent in a forest, wake up, make a fire, and nobody will bother you. This isn't an accident. It's a legal right. And Finns take it seriously. On a summer weekend, half the country seems to disappear into the wilderness. Not on a resort, not at a hotel. Just gone, into the trees. The air quality here is among the cleanest in the world. Tap water in most of Finland is some of the purest you'll find anywhere. And in parts of the country, the nearest neighbor might be several kilometers away. Not as a problem, but as a preference. Which tells you something important about Finnish people before you've even met one. Finns have a reputation that follows them everywhere. Quiet, reserved, possibly the most socially cautious people in Europe. There's a joke, a well-worn one, that an extroverted Finn is someone who stares at your shoes instead of their own. Finns themselves find it funny because it has just enough truth in it to sting a little. But here's what the joke misses. That quietness isn't emptiness. It isn't shyness in the self-conscious, anxious sense. It's something more deliberate. Spend enough time here, and it starts to feel like a kind of honesty. You never wonder if a Finn is being polite when they're actually annoyed. If they say something, they mean it. If they say nothing, that usually means things are fine. And then there's the way Finnish people look. The image of Finland in most people's minds involves tall, fair-skinned, light-eyed people with a certain kind of bone structure, clean lines, strong features, minimal fuss. And while Finland, like every country, is more diverse than any single image can capture, there is something to the aesthetic that keeps appearing. Finnish beauty is understated in the most striking way possible. Less about decoration, more about presence. Women here tend to carry themselves without trying to be noticed, which, of course, is exactly why you notice them. Natural hair colors across Finland range from very light blonde to dark brown, though lighter shades do appear more frequently here than in southern Europe. Eyes are often light, blue, gray, green, but what people remember isn't any single feature. It's the composure, the ease, the sense that a Finnish woman has absolutely nothing to prove and knows it. Part of this comes from a society built deliberately on equality. Finland was the first country in the world to give women the full right to vote and to stand for election in 1906, over a decade before most of Western Europe. That wasn't symbolic. It set a tone that has compounded for over a century. Today, women hold senior positions across Finnish politics, business, law, and culture with a matter-of-factness that still surprises visitors from other parts of the world. The idea that a woman's ambition needs explaining or defending simply doesn't land here the way it might elsewhere. Finnish women study, travel, build careers, and make decisions about their own lives with an independence that isn't performed or asserted. It's just the baseline. And that confidence, the quiet, unhurried kind, is a big part of what makes Finnish women so consistently striking to outsiders. But if you want to understand Finnish people, really understand them, you need to understand one word: sisu. Sisu doesn't have a clean English translation. The closest you can get is something like grit, or inner strength, or stubborn resilience in the face of impossible odds. But even that doesn't fully cover it. Sisu doesn't come from thinking you can win. It comes from deciding to keep going, even when you're not sure you can. And it shows up in modern Finnish life in ways that are quieter, but just as real. In the way Finns approach setbacks without drama, in the way they understate difficulty, in the way complaining is almost socially frowned upon. You deal with it. You keep going. You don't make a performance of it. Now, here's the thing that almost every visitor to Finland discovers within the first 48 hours. The one habit that sits at the absolute center of Finnish culture, more than coffee, more than silence, more even than the lakes: the sauna. Finland has approximately 5.5 million people and an estimated 3.3 million saunas. That is not a typo. There are more saunas in Finland than there are cars. Saunas exist in private homes, apartment buildings, offices, factories, government buildings, and on the shores of almost every lake in the country. The Finnish parliament has a sauna. The presidential palace has a sauna. It is entirely normal in Finland to conduct a business meeting in a sauna, to negotiate, to make decisions, to resolve disagreements, all while sitting in extreme heat, wearing nothing at all. This is worth pausing on. The sauna is not a luxury or a wellness trend in Finland. It's not something you book as a treat. It's just where life happens. Family sauna nights are a weekly ritual in most households. The tradition of going to the sauna, cooling off in a lake, or in winter, rolling in the snow, heating up again, and sitting quietly together is older than the Finnish state itself. It predates Christianity's arrival in Finland. Some estimates place sauna culture here at over 2,000 years old. And here's the part that genuinely surprises outsiders. There is almost no awkwardness about it. The nudity, the closeness, the silence. It isn't strange. It's where Finns feel most comfortable, most natural. There's a Finnish saying, "In the sauna, one must conduct oneself as one would in church." It sounds like a joke until you understand that they mean it. The sauna is a place of honesty, calm, and a strange kind of equality. Nobody's status follows them through that door. If you visit Finland and someone invites you to their sauna, say yes. It is one of the highest forms of trust and welcome the culture offers. So far, Finland sounds like exactly the kind of place you'd want to live. Clean air, pure water, deep forests, a culture built on honesty and equality, and a national ritual that doubles as therapy. And that's all real. But real life in Finland is more complicated than the postcard version, and the complications start the moment you try to connect with people. If you move to Finland, or even visit for a while, the thing that hits you first isn't the cold. It's the distance. Not physical distance, social distance. Finns do not do small talk. Not in the elevator, not at the bus stop, not standing in a queue. If you try to strike up a conversation with a stranger about the weather or the weekend or what they think of the local food, the response you'll likely get is a short, polite answer followed by silence. Not because the person dislikes you. They simply don't see the purpose of speaking when there's nothing specific to say. This creates a sharp culture shock for visitors from Southern Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, or anywhere that treats conversation as social glue. In those cultures, talking to strangers is friendly. In Finland, it can feel like an intrusion. You're not being rude when you stay quiet. You're being respectful. The upside is that when a Finn does speak to you, when they do decide you're worth the words, they mean every single one. Finnish friendships form slowly, but they last. They don't have the category of acquaintance in quite the same way other cultures do. Either someone is important to you or they're a stranger. There's not much in between. And once you're in, once you've made it past that careful outer wall, the loyalty and warmth you find there is genuinely surprising. Dating in Finland comes with its own set of rules, most of which are simply the absence of rules that exist elsewhere. Finns don't flirt in the ornate theatrical way of many cultures. There aren't elaborate compliments or carefully staged approaches. The most common way Finns meet romantic partners is through mutual friends, work, hobbies, or, especially in cities, dating apps. Because the prospect of approaching a complete stranger and risking a moment of social awkwardness is genuinely uncomfortable for most people here. What does happen, though, is this. Finns are direct. If someone likes you, they'll tell you, or they'll show you in clear, unmistakable actions. There are no games, no deliberate ambiguity. Splitting the bill is completely standard and has been for generations. Nobody reads anything into it. Equality in relationships is an expectation, not a negotiation. Now let's talk about something Finland does better than almost anywhere else on Earth. Education. The Finnish school system is, at this point, famous worldwide. Educators from Japan, Singapore, the United States, and dozens of other countries have flown to Finland specifically to study it. And what they find tends to confuse them because Finland's secret doesn't look like what they expected. Finnish children don't start formal school until age 7, later than most developed countries. They have less homework than almost any peer nation. Standardized testing is minimal. There are no national rankings of schools, no league tables, no labeling of students as gifted or struggling from an early age. Teachers are among the most respected and best paid professionals in Finnish society. And teacher training programs are some of the most competitive in the country, harder to get into than law or medicine. And yet, consistently, Finnish students rank among the highest in the world for reading, mathematics, and science. Not because they were drilled harder, because they were trusted more. The philosophy is simple. Give children time to be children, give teachers the freedom to teach, and don't measure everything to death. The results speak for themselves. University is free, not subsidized, actually free, all the way through a PhD for those who qualify. And students receive a monthly government stipend simply for being enrolled. The idea that a young person's ability to access higher education should depend on their family's wealth is, in Finland, treated as a moral failure. This connects to something deeper about Finnish society. There is a genuine functional commitment to equality here that goes beyond slogans. It's baked into systems, into laws, into the way tax money is spent. The gap between Finland's richest and poorest citizens is one of the smallest in the developed world, not because wealth is punished. Finland produces successful companies and billionaires, but because the floor is deliberately high, nobody is left to fall through it. Tell me something. Has anything about Finland surprised you so far? Drop your country in the comments and tell me whether a place like this would suit you or drive you quietly mad. Coffee culture in Finland deserves its own mention because the numbers are genuinely hard to believe. Finland is consistently ranked as the world's biggest coffee-consuming nation per capita. The average Finn drinks somewhere between 4 and 5 cups a day. And here's the part that sounds like it was invented. There are mandatory coffee breaks built into Finnish labor law. Not optional, not informal, required by law. Workers are legally entitled to 2 paid coffee breaks during a standard workday, and in most workplaces, these are taken seriously. You stop, you sit, you drink your coffee, you talk, or you don't, and then you go back. Coffee in Finland isn't the espresso shot culture of Italy or the elaborate seasonal drink culture of American coffee chains. Finnish coffee is light roast, strong and drunk black or with just a little milk. It's about the pause, not the product. In a culture that values silence and stillness, the coffee break is a sanctioned moment to simply exist without having to be productive, and Finns protect it. There's a moment every visitor to Finland eventually has. It might happen on the 2nd day or the 5th. You're standing somewhere, maybe near a lake, maybe on a city street, and you look up at the sky, and something feels wrong. Not wrong exactly, just different, bigger, more present than you're used to. In summer, the sky above Finland does something genuinely disorienting. The sun doesn't set. In Helsinki, the capital, summer nights have only a few hours of what could generously be called dusk. It never gets fully dark. The sky turns a deep, bruised orange-pink somewhere around midnight, and then it starts getting lighter again. You can read a book outdoors at 11 p.m., You can go for a run at 2 in the morning under light that looks like late afternoon. And further north, in Finnish Lapland, above the Arctic Circle, the sun doesn't set at all for weeks. In midsummer, in places like Rovaniemi or Saariselkä, the sun is above the horizon for over 70 consecutive days. Hotels provide blackout curtains as standard. People lose track of time in a way that feels genuinely strange, not merely inconvenient. A kind of beautiful disorientation. You walk out of a restaurant at midnight and the sun is beaming down and every instinct you have about time simply stops working. Finns celebrate this with a holiday called Juhannus, midsummer, which falls around the summer solstice in late June. It is, without question, the most Finnish holiday that exists. Families and friends head to lake cabins. Bonfires are lit at the water's edge. Saunas run all night. The usual Finnish reserve loosens considerably. Midsummer is one of the rare times you will reliably see Finns being loud in public, and the country essentially empties out of cities for a few days as everyone retreats to the wilderness. It sounds magical, and it is. But the sky that gives Finland those white nights takes payment in winter. In Helsinki in December, the sun rises around 9:30 in the morning and sets before 3:30 in the afternoon. That's fewer than 6 hours of daylight. And the light that does appear is pale, low-angled, more like a long, slow dusk than actual day. Clouds frequently make it dimmer still. In Lapland in winter, it's darker than that. The sun barely clears the horizon at all for several weeks in December and early January. The polar night, Kamos in Finnish, is not a metaphor or an exaggeration. It's a physical, daily reality for a significant portion of the country. The psychological effect of this is real and well documented. Finland has one of the higher rates of seasonal affective disorder in Europe. Around 10% of Finns are estimated to experience it significantly, with a larger percentage feeling its milder effects: fatigue, low mood, disrupted sleep, a kind of gray heaviness that settles in sometime around November and doesn't fully lift until March. Finns have adapted to this in practical, functional ways. Light therapy lamps are common household items. Vitamin D supplements are widely used and officially recommended. The culture of the sauna, the lake, the winter walk. These aren't just tradition, they're strategies for staying sane through the darkness. There's also a particular Finnish relationship with nature in winter that outsiders rarely understand until they experience it. Finland in winter is not just cold, it's visually stunning in a way that photographs can't fully capture. Fresh snow on birch forests, frozen lakes that you can walk across, temperatures that turn your breath into clouds and make silence sound somehow cleaner. Finns don't hide from winter, they go into it. Cross-country skiing is not a sport in Finland. It's transportation. Millions of kilometers of maintained ski trails crisscross the country, and Finns use them the way other people use sidewalks. And in the darkest weeks of winter, if you're far enough north and lucky with the weather, the sky does something extraordinary. The aurora borealis, the northern lights, ripples across the darkness in colors that seem designed specifically to make you forget you were ever cold. Green most often, but sometimes purple, pink, white. You stand in a snow-covered field at minus 20 degrees, and something moves across the sky above you. And it doesn't feel like weather. It feels like the universe briefly showing off. That beauty and that hardship exist in exactly the same sky. You don't get one without the other. Now let's talk about money, because this is where Finland stops sounding like a dream and starts sounding like a negotiation. Finland is expensive. Not quite at the extreme end of European cost of living, but firmly in the top tier. Helsinki in particular has become one of the pricier capital cities on the continent. A simple lunch at a restaurant will cost you around 15 to 18 euros. A beer in a bar runs 7 to 10 euros. A monthly transit pass in Helsinki costs around 60 to 70 euros. If you want to rent an apartment in the city center, expect to pay 1,200 to 1,800 euros per month for a one-bedroom. And in desirable neighborhoods, it climbs higher than that. Groceries are manageable if you cook at home. Finland's supermarket prices are high by European standards, but not extreme. The real shock for most newcomers is eating out and socializing, where costs accumulate fast. Taxes are high. The Finnish income tax system is progressive, meaning the more you earn, the higher the percentage you pay. For average earners, the combined municipal and state tax sits somewhere around 30 to 35%. For higher earners, it can reach into the low 50s. On top of that, VAT, value added tax, sits at 25.5% on most goods. So when you're buying almost anything in Finland, a significant portion of what you pay goes straight to the state. Here's what that money buys. Healthcare is nearly free at point of use, not symbolically free, actually free, or a few euros for a consultation. Dental care for children is free until age 18. Prescription medications have a yearly cap. Once you hit it, the state covers the rest. Mental health services are accessible and covered. Maternity and paternity leave is among the most generous in the world. Finnish parents can share around 160 working days of paid parental leave per child, with roughly a third specifically designated for fathers. Use it or lose it. The result is that Finnish fathers are visibly, functionally involved in early childcare in a way that still surprises visitors from more traditional societies. And here's a detail that captures the Finnish approach to fairness in a single image. In Finland, traffic fines are calculated as a percentage of the driver's income. If you earn an average salary and you're caught speeding, you pay a few hundred euros. If you're a wealthy executive caught doing the same thing on the same road, you might pay tens of thousands. The idea is straightforward. The punishment should feel equally significant regardless of how much money you have. A Nokia executive once received a fine of over 100,000 euros for a speeding violation. The system isn't designed to be punishing, it's designed to be equal. That kind of thinking, practical, logical, committed to genuine fairness rather than symbolic fairness, runs through Finnish society in ways that foreigners find either deeply admirable or slightly unsettling, depending on what they're used to. Finland also consistently tops global rankings for press freedom, transparency, and low corruption. For several years running, it has been rated one of the least corrupt countries in the world. Government contracts, public services, regulatory decisions. These are conducted with a level of procedural honesty that, in many parts of the world, would sound almost unbelievable. Finns themselves don't find it particularly remarkable. They just think that's how things should work. If this country is starting to sound like the kind of place you'd consider moving to, subscribe to the channel right now, because what's coming next is the part most travel content refuses to show you, and it changes the whole picture. Here's the contradiction that sits at the heart of Finland and refuses to resolve neatly. Finland has been ranked the happiest country in the world for 7 consecutive years. Since 2018, when the World Happiness Report began consistently placing it at the top, Finland has held that position 7 years in a row. Not second, not third, first, every single time. And yet, Finland also carries one of the higher rates of depression in Europe, one of the higher rates of suicide, one of the highest rates of alcohol-related mortality among comparable nations. A significant portion of the population experiences seasonal mental health difficulties every single winter, and the country has some of the highest rates of single-person households in the developed world. So how do you explain that? How does the world's happiest country also carry that kind of weight? The answer starts with what the happiness rankings are actually measuring. They're not measuring joy. They're not asking people whether they laugh a lot, whether they feel excitement, whether their days feel rich with connection and warmth. They're measuring life satisfaction, the assessment of whether your life is going well by the metrics that matter: safety, health, education, economic security, trust in institutions, freedom to make your own choices, freedom from corruption. On those measures, Finland scores near perfectly, and the data doesn't lie. Finns do live well in the structural sense. They are cared for when they're sick. Their children are educated without debt. Their streets are safe. Their systems work. Their government, while imperfect, is accountable and functional. When something goes wrong in your life in Finland, the society around you doesn't simply watch you fall, but safety and joy are different things. And Finland has historically struggled with the emotional side. The Finnish approach to emotional expression has been shaped by centuries of isolation, harsh winters, a culture that prizes self-sufficiency, and a social norm that equates stoicism with strength. Talking about your feelings, particularly to people outside your immediate family, has not traditionally been encouraged. Vulnerability, in the older Finnish cultural template, is something you manage privately. Sisu means pushing through. It doesn't have much room for sitting down and crying about things. This is changing. The younger generation of Finns is notably more open about mental health than their parents or grandparents were. Therapy is more normalized. Conversations about depression and anxiety appear more frequently in Finnish media and public life. The country has invested significantly in mental health infrastructure. Progress is real and visible, but the gap remains. And it matters. There's another dimension to Finnish life that few travel videos bother to address: immigration and diversity. Finland historically has been one of the most ethnically homogeneous countries in Europe. For most of the 20th century, emigration from Finland, particularly to Sweden, was more significant than immigration into it. The country was simply not a destination. That has changed. In the past 2 decades, Finland has become increasingly diverse. Helsinki in particular has shifted significantly. Around 17% of the city's population now has a foreign background, and that percentage is growing. Communities from Somalia, Russia, Estonia, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere have established themselves in Finnish cities. The integration experience has been uneven. Finland offers refugees and immigrants language courses, subsidized housing, and welfare support from arrival. The intention is genuine, but the execution is more complicated. The Finnish labor market is difficult to enter without fluency in Finnish. one of Europe's hardest languages for most foreigners to learn. Finnish isn't related to the major European language families. It belongs to the same group as Estonian and is only distantly linked to Hungarian. Its grammar can take years to master, creating a serious barrier for newcomers. Social acceptance has also been inconsistent. Like much of Europe, Finland has faced tensions around immigration, and political parties campaigning on stricter immigration policies have gained support in recent elections. The country is still working through questions of identity, what it means to be Finnish, who belongs here, and how a historically homogeneous culture adapts to diversity. Finns are approaching these issues with the same practical honesty they apply to most things. But despite its complications, Finland has given the world far more than its size would suggest. Nokia, once the world's largest mobile phone manufacturer, began as a small paper mill, founded in 1865 beside the Nokian Virta River. At its peak, in the early 2000s, Nokia controlled over 40% of the global phone market. Its decline is complicated, but its rise from a Finnish factory town to a global tech giant remains remarkable. For a country of just 5.5 million people, Finland's influence on the digital world is extraordinary. Yet Finns rarely brag about it. In Finland, showing off is seen as its own kind of social failure. Part of this comes from a cultural idea called talkoot, communal effort, the belief that success belongs to everyone who contributed. Underneath it is a deeper belief. Achievement doesn't make you better than anyone else. You still wait in line. You still pay your taxes. You still show up. A Finnish millionaire cycling to work and shopping at the same supermarket as everyone else usually isn't performing humility. He's just Finnish. So here is real life in Finland. You wake up in a quiet, clean country where the systems work and forests seem endless. You drink too much coffee and maybe not enough sunlight. You respect your neighbor's silence and expect the same in return. You go to the sauna. You swim in freezing lakes after the sauna, sometimes through a hole cut into the ice. You learn that sisu means not giving up when life gets difficult. You may feel lonely sometimes, especially during the long, dark months between October and March. But you also know that if something goes wrong, the country will try to catch you. Not perfectly, not without bureaucracy, but it will catch you. And on certain winter nights, when the sky clears above the forests, the northern lights appear, green and purple across the darkness, making every cold and quiet day feel worth it. Finland is not loud. It is not especially warm, socially or climatically. It won't instantly charm you or make you feel at home, but it will be honest with you. And if you give it enough time, it offers something genuinely rare, a life that is quietly, stubbornly, unmistakably good. Maybe that's why people here seem so calm, not because nothing is wrong, not because the winters aren't brutal, but because they've built something steady enough to stand on. So before you go, here's the question. Would you trade noise for safety, warmth for fairness, small talk for honesty? Tell me in the comments, because every answer says something interesting about what people truly want from life. And if this journey through Finland made you curious, surprised you, or made you want to travel north someday, subscribe now. Every week, this channel explores the real lives of countries the world usually only sees from a distance. Not the tourism version, but the real one. The beautiful parts, the difficult parts, and the parts nobody talks about online.